here we go. Round number 1. David Ochoa on the top of your screen has decent draw. There's no actual workshop, but the Mana Crypt will make up for that. Well, Rade on the bottom of your screen has a pretty gassy draw of his own. Interesting. Who won the die roll is obviously
That's a big question.
here.
Well, actually took a mulligan. It looked to me like he had multiple cards that are just very unexciting in the matchup. He had Mental Misstep, he had Pyroblast.
Yeah, you're right.
So he's down to 5 with a no-lander. It looks like, with the Scry and I think being on the draw, this is a hand you want to keep. But yeah.
He's on the draw?
It says turn 1 Ochoa, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. If I guess you can keep 0 lands. You're on the draw. You get a scry. You get a draw step. You get a get probe.
Yeah, and he's got Force of Will, which is the best way to not immediately lose the game, at least.
Probably has to force this Thorn. All right.
Yeah,
Ooh,
if he doesn't, he's liable to play 0 spells for the whole game. So I like that play. Kind of forced into it. Now, what Ula really needs is a basic land or a fetch land to get it.
Exactly the same thing.
Because if he's forced to just put a dual land into play and say go with, trying to get to his 2-mana spell, that's going to be tough against the Wasteland deck.
All right, taking note of everything that Ochoa's got to work with.
Oh, and he did find a fetch land, so we may have a competitive game here. With what the tools David has right now, he's not able to be terribly explosive. Although, a metalworker that survives if he draws well will be kind of scary.
Yeah, his turn 2 is just a metalworker, and then turn 3 is Triskelion, and then that's kind of all he's got. Triskelion's pretty good against Young Pyro.
This is true. Yep. So the fetch land's perfect. I mean, he gets to have a safe land in play for a minute, gets to add to his delve, because he's going to need this Treasure Cruise to get back in the game, recoup from the double mulligan Force of Will start that he had. But, Treasure Cruise is a great way to do it. So it looks like David drew a Mox, which will allow him to get in for 2 if he wants, or he could just keep it in his hand for to add mana with the Metalworker.
I think you probably get your beat on here.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, Ula took 4 damage from the Skitaxian probes. He took 1 from Force of Will. He's going to crack a fetch land. Like, the Mistress Factories are actually a relevant clock.
Yeah, even in the bad case scenario where the Metalworker dies, he can cast Triskelion just off of the lands and artifact mana he has in play.
All right. Is Ula... Ooh, Ula might actually recover from this. So now he's going to have to crack his fetch land, obviously, and he's got to play a Volcanic. So he's now vulnerable to Wasteland, but he gets to play Young Pyromancer, and he gets to sit on Gush to save his land from Ochoa's Wasteland.
Yeah.
I mean, this is Gush out from under your Wasteland, untap Treasure Cruise. I think.
Yeah. Now, I have to imagine that Triskelion is it's Workshop's adaptation to Young Pyromancer, and I guess to a lesser extent Monastery Mentor. It's a card that you've seen on and off for years in these Workshop decks, but it seems to really shine right now for exactly the reason that we might be about to see.
Yeah, I mean, Arcbound Ravager can jump a bunch of counters on it too, which is always fun.
Yeah.
I think Hangerback being printed is probably why that particular take on shops is more popular now. Arcbound Ravager can obviously also dump about a bunch of counters onto Hangerback. Wow. Metalworker's so much mana here. He's able to play this Triskelion and still... So it
looks like he's going to Gush in response, looking for a Force of Will.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. He can't...
He probably just figures he's too low on resources to beat or resolve Triskelion. That's gonna wipe out his board.
Agreed. Comes up with Mental Misstep.
Mental Misstep, no.
Not the answer Ula was looking for.
Well, he's got Treasure Cruise to rebuild, but it's gonna require David really not drawing much for the rest of the game, and even that is a big if. Um, if he can beat the board.
Yeah, Ula's actually one mana short of casting it next turn too. 6 cards in the yard.
Yep.
And
So he could
Mishras
use
are
a
coming
lightning
over.
bolt or
Yes.
a fetch land, or even a basic land, I suppose.
Pretty tough to recover from a double mulligan. Ula is fighting the good fight here, but
Oh, there's the bolt.
so I guess he has to what? Bolt Triskelion? But then he takes 2, and Mishra Metalworker is attacking for 5.
Yeah, it's a tough spot.
I mean, I don't know what he was going to draw that was better. It's just another wasteland too.
Well, to a certain extent, this is okay. I mean, it's according to plan. The workshop deck being a great game 1 deck and winning the die roll, and with the multi 5, it's like, okay, this one's probably not going to go my way, but the sideboard games is where I'm going to really shine. So to a certain extent, the match is just it's on track. We're still in the midst of our battle here, even if David takes this game 1 pretty convincingly. Kind of parallels to decks like Affinity in Modern or something like that, or the Creature Swarm decks, Mono Red and Standard. If it's these decks win game 1 a really high percentage of the time, and then it's the sideboard games that really, beg the question.
A fine point. Ochoa is even winning all his mana crypt flips. He's only lost, 1 for 4?
An auspicious start.
Yeah, the one that,
Not enough moxes off of that Treasure Cruise.
Not a whole lot that Ula's version of this Christie's Therapy deck can draw there, actually. It's not the best at coming from behind. It's not like,
it's not
a
super
stage deck
explosive.
or something that can just win the game on the spot. So we're going to watch these guys sideboard.
Well, we know 4 cards that are coming in for sure, right? Ingot
Yeah,
Chewers.
I assume the Ingot Chewers and the Mountain, obviously. I gotta believe you bring in Wasteland and Strip Mine here.
Yeah, I would imagine you just up your total land count. I mean, the workshop deck has man lands, so it's not like the wastelands are going to be dead by any stretch of the imagination. Plus, he's got a lot of cards to take out. The mental missteps
Mental
are
Misstep
quite
is
poor.
and the Flusterstorm is terrible.
Blast. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You still
Now,
want your lightning bolts, but
how
wow.
good is Null Rod against workshops?
Apparently it's good enough that Ula's bringing in a second one. I mean, it stops what? Hangerback, Triskelion, Arcbound Ravager,
the equipment,
swords, the Jete.
And that's in addition to all the mana. I mean, it stops Metalworker and the Mox, and if you can put it into play on turn 1, I imagine it's just great.
Well,
turn 1 on the play.
Ula clearly thinks it's great. Now, what is Ochoa doing? Does he have much of a sideboard here?
I imagine much like the Affinity deck in Modern, you probably don't want to over sideboard. Your game 1 deck is so powerful and works so well together that it's only, a couple like preference type of cards that you mix around, but mainly you're just sticking with the game plan.
Looks like he's taking out the Tango Wires.
Yeah, and I wonder if that's a matchup thing or a play draw thing. He's also taken out the Jite, maybe in part because of the 2 Null Rods.
Yeah, and the Crucibles coming in could also be a reaction to deck list being public.
Yeah,
right. He can see what Ula is up to. These guys are playing.
With sort of Fire and Ice, at least you can get it on a creature, and then it's got a big impact on the game for as long as that creature's alive. The Jite, it's kind of a slower card, and if Null Rod comes down at any point in the lifespan of the Jitte, it's shut off immediately. So I agree with that decision. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Is Ula ever going to draw lands?
I know, even boarding in like 100 lands, he still can't find one.
He brought in 5 extra. And Ochoa has a turn 1 Trinisphere.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tempting hand with the double force, the probe, but being on the play and not yet getting your mulligan scry. I mean, oh man, look at this hand. This is the perfect hand. If you could teleport some lands to the top of your library, it's perfect, right? But it's risky. I mean,
it's super risky.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would send it back.
Should take a mulligan. This is the game that he has his biggest advantage in, being on the play after sideboard. So he doesn't want to risk a non-competitive game when he's at his greatest advantage. Yeah, and he does decide to mulligan into another good hand. I like this one as well.
Solid. Yeah, turn one Force of Will to stop whatever broken thing Ochoa leads with. He gets a time walk to develop his board. He gets to brainstorm fetch land if he can time it right.
Yeah, so I'm curious what he is actually going to do on turn 1, because normally you would want to lead with your regular land and have your fetch land for after the brainstorm, but that leaves you vulnerable to wasteland against the workshop deck. So I mean, maybe he can use the probe to inform his decision, but it's certainly not easy. I mean,
it's funny though. If he uses
even the simple decisions, they are complicated. You know, there's a lot of there's a lot in the background of the simple decisions, and they're important too.
Including the fact that if he uses the probe for information, then he doesn't have it to pitch to Force of Will, and he has to pitch a better card.
That's true as well. Yeah.
I mean,
however, at this stage in the game, Time Walk is, it's the power 9 card. It's insane, but at this stage in the game, if he's forced to use it early, it's just going to cycle. It's just going to be like an Explorer or something like that. So it's not that bad if he has to pitch the Time Walk to the Force of Will.
I'll buy that. Plus, the information is particularly good here on turn 1 with a Force of Will in hand.
So
draws a fetch land.
We saw him board in 3 or 4 wastelands and a strip mine. If he could just get that one land before David gets the Crucible into play, we could have a non-competitive game in the opposite direction.
Totally true. Mishra off the top for David.
Yeah, so you have to lead with the Trinisphere here, right? Even in the face of Wasteland.
I think so.
The Trinisphere is too... This is the reason you play the deck, right?
It's just so absurd. If your opponent doesn't have a Force of Will, you just win the game right here.
Yeah. Now, do you think he will pitch the Time Walk or the Brainstorm? Or will he brainstorm response?
I would pitch Time Walk, I think. Save the Brainstorm to brainstorm fetch next turn.
Ooh, he's maybe brainstorming in response.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, that does use his mana more efficiently. Wow. Found a Wasteland. Found a Black Lotus.
But not much action.
Do a whole lot.
I think I still... Oh, yeah, I mean, the Wasteland...
The Wasteland is insane here, because he saw Ochoa's hand.
I think I'm still pitching the Time Walk. Preordain, you just got to dig to a business card, another card draw spell or something.
Yeah, I think I'm putting back Volcanic, and then it doesn't matter because you're going to draw the next one on your draw step. Fetch Scalding Tarn can shuffle away the Volcanic. No, you need to Wasteland next turn. You're going to redraw both of these cards no matter what you do.
Unless you preordain, scry one to the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I'll buy that. So you pitch Time Walk. It lets you preordain main phase. That was a good brainstorm.
Is there any way you would let the Trinisphere resolve? Just wasteland him and... I guess the thing is, if the Trinisphere comes into play, your Force of Will is like a dead card anyway, so...
Yeah. And your opponent does have more workshops in their deck.
Yeah.
Now, can he find something exciting to Lotus out? That'd be the dream here. Volcanic and Demonic Tutor are the cards.
Now we have some stuff to think about.
Yeah, it's got to be push the land, draw the DT. But what are you doing with it?
Yeah, is there any like insane Haymaker card that you can play against the workshop deck?
I don't know. I mean, Ula doesn't really have that. I mean, Ancestral might be the best he can get.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Does
reload
he
with
has a dig through
whatever.
time in his deck? Yeah,
Yeah, he has a dig through time.
yeah,
That's
that
true.
might be better.
All right. David drew Mox Ruby to follow up Mishra's Factory, so he's got 2 more mana this turn than Ula was hoping he'd have after looking at his hand on turn 1.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't do a
But
ton though.
still a ways from doing anything incredibly powerful.
Yeah, he goes for the Thorn here, which actually kind of locks David more than Ula. All he can play from his current hand is the Ravager, and he's 2 mana away from anything else. Still, Ula's obviously tons of cantrips like Preordain. Interesting spot. Demonic Tutor now costs 3. Ancestral costs 2. You can overdelve to pay for the Thorn of Amethyst with a Treasure Cruise or a Dig Through Time, but with 6 cards in his yard, that's not actually going to help much.
Boy, Randy, I mean, when we were looking at turn 1 and we're like, oh, what land's he going to play? I don't know what he's going to do. Now we have Demonic Tutor and more card draw spells. I'm lost. I mean, it's a good thing that I'm not playing this Grixis Therapy deck. I don't know, are you supposed to be patient with demonic tutors, wait and see how the game plays out? Would you just fire it off for your most powerful spell right away? It's tough to know.
I just like drawing cards with this deck. I mean, you don't really have haymakers. It's not built as a haymaker deck. It's more of a, incremental advantage, get out of Pyromancer. I mean, sometimes you DT for Young Pyro, sometimes you DT for Ancestral. Those are really the things that those are the most common
So,
targets in my experience. He could get a Wasteland too.
yeah, he
That's
could
not
get a
crazy.
Wasteland. Do you predict we see him get like a draw 3 or a dig through time or something like that?
I mean, that was my thought before the Thorn, but he knows all 4 cards in David's hand. And that's got to make Wasteland tempting here. Now that Ochoa has played a Thorn.
Yeah, but
Then
the
again, I
thing
mean,
is, his demonic tutor is his real business card. If he wastelands and then doesn't find some pressure using the preordain, then I mean David's going to have as much time as he needs to get out of it. And the threat of the crucible just undoing all the hard work. Looks like you called it. He does get the wasteland, but I see this as being a little bit of not a very safe line of play, not very reliable line of play.
it's particularly bad with Ochoa drawing a Wasteland. Oh, he's going to use it for mana, though, right? So Ula will get to Preordain.
It's funny at these games where like both players are wastelanding each other. It's like somebody's a little off if both players are willing to trade off all their lands. But it looks like David is going to wait because he knows if he gets the Crucible into play, he's set.
2 mana Preordain.
Yep.
Jace and Null Rod are the cards.
Wow, Null Rod is appealing here. I mean, not only does it shut off the Ravager, but it cuts off
The
David's
Ruby.
mana and a
Yeah.
lot of the potential mana sources that would come off the top for him. I really think that the Crucible is the key card. I mean, certainly of the cards that have not yet had their full impact on the game, Crucible is the specter of this Crucible, which Ulid knows about in David's hand. That's the defining factor of the game right now. He's got to do something before that gets into play. Null Rod's a good thing to do, but he needs a 3rd land before he can even play it.
True story. I'm with you, though. I think if Ochoa can get to the Crucible, he'll just win.
And
Ula's
it's incredible
this.
too
Wow.
because I didn't even identify the Crucible as one of the cards that he would really be boarding in this matchup. But in a matchup where both players are wastelanding each other, it's just the best card you can have.
He pushed, right? He pushed the Null Rod. He pushed the other card. He drew Wasteland randomly off the top. Yeah, and Ochoa's moving in. Ochoa's, I mean, he's ahead. He's the one with the Ravager. One of these guys has to be wrong. You think it's Ula?
Oh, I mean, not necessarily. I can't say that I've identified any play that either player has made that I feel is, strongly against. But it's a really weird dynamic of the game that both players
Right.
are willing to trade resources.
No Rod Scalding Tarn are the
So he's
two
got another
cards.
shot at that null rod if he wants
He
it.
can cast it now. Now
Yeah.
it's pretty good now that you have the third land.
But here's a question for you: if he casts the null rod, he's probably going to bait David into sacking the Mox Ruby to the Ravager. Can he beat a 2/2 creature from this board state?
Come on,
I love
surely
I
a
love
vanilla
vintage.
2/2.
Yeah, because the for all the insane powerful things that can happen, the turn one wins and all this crazy stuff, Grizzlebrands and Blightsteel Colossuses, sometimes a 1/1 or 2/2 creature is just insurmountable. Just when the board gets to a crazy position like this, that's it, a 2/2 creature that you can't beat it.
I completely agree with you. It's actually one of the most, I don't know, almost charming parts of Vintage is you get these games. The crazy powerful cards just all smash into each other, cancel out, and it's just like, I have a 2/2. I can't beat that.
Yeah. You'll find 3 Simian Spirit Guides in my sideboard for just such a situation. If I really think a gray ogre is what the situation calls for.
I mean, I know that's not what they're actually there for, but I'm also sure you've won games that way at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, he
He's the
sacks the Thorn of Amethyst too. So
You
so
think
this is it. He's all in.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that makes sense, right? Ula's got 3 mana. David's got 0. He doesn't want a Thorn to be in play, and he gets a +1/+1 counter out of it.
Yeah, I actually thought we would see him throw the Chalice in for just one. Oh, he can't sack
He
it.
didn't play it. He didn't play it. If he
Yeah,
played it the previous turn,
in
then
my head, I was thinking he was, wanted to play a 0 mana artifact and sack it to the Ravager, but now with the Null Rod in play, he can't sacrifice anything more.
we're at the point where Ula's going to start paying blue mana for these Gitaxian probes, I think.
Uh-huh.
Oh, he's going to pay life for this one. I guess that doesn't change the math versus a 3/3.
Mm-hmm.
Still 3 turns.
So Ula is a favorite here, right? I mean, he's got a handful of draw steps left, and most of his deck sees him new cards. Excuse me.
All right. Drew a fetch land off the first Git probe. Now he is, in fact, going to pay blue mana for this one. Finds a Ponder, which he can then immediately cast.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So, yeah, he paid blue mana for the second Git probe, having found a fetch land off the first. The second one found a Ponder. Dig,
should find him
Underground
something.
Sea, and Jace are the 3 cards with the Ponder. It's got to be good. I mean, Jace will auto flip, but he can't. He has not played a land this turn, right? He can take Jace, crack Polluted Delta, play Jace.
Then he would
surely there's
take
a card in that graveyard that could deal with a vanilla 3/3.
Yeah, I mean, at worst, you could Demonic Tutor for Ingot Chewer.
Right.
So
I actually
like Jace is a good pick here.
I actually don't think there is a card that straight deals with Ravager, but you're right about the DT. Because he took his lightning. He didn't take his lightning bolts out, right? No, he did not take his lightning bolts out. Just hasn't drawn one in 25 cards. Ancient Tomb. That actually taps for mana. What does that mean?
Doesn't
he can
mean
Chalice 1?
anything just yet.
I think it means Chalice for 1.
Yeah, Chalice for 1. I don't think it restricts any of Ula's best options, though.
It stops Lightning Bolt.
Right, but I mean in terms of what he's likely to flash back from his graveyard this turn.
Yeah, that's fair. It does not deal with the Jace. But, I mean, Ula's at 3. You don't have to cause that many problems to finish this off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally Chalice 1 here. It shuts off almost nothing from David's deck, and it shuts off all of Ula's cantrips, plus his lightning bolts. Ingot Chewer, DT for Ingot Chewer is probably Ula's play next turn.
He drew Young Pyromancer, which is a big one. I mean, I'm sure he's going to take the loot with Jace and see what the second card brings him.
Yeah, I don't think he has enough mana to answer the to play the Pyromancer and then answer the Ravager. It's like,
no, but I mean, for every token that you make, it gives you a chump blocker at least.
Oh, that's fair.
You have to worry a little bit about the Null Rod being in play means there's not a ton you have to worry about. Yeah, I think we're seeing this game turn around in favor of Ula. His game plan worked. I mean, we talked about the Demonic Tutor play. He took the Wasteland, and David never got to 3 mana, and that was the key.
Wow. He Wastelanded Ancient Tomb, so he's going to block flip Jace instead of flashing something back.
That old song and dance.
Doesn't get to keep this card. It is headed straight to the yard either way. Wow. He wishes he could have kept that one. Jeez, second Young Pyro. Now flashing back, well, but he can't flash back a 1-mana spell because there's a Chalice in play.
Yeah, I mean, he could if he just wants 2 tokens, but he will not resolve this spell.
Fair. It may actually... Those 2 tokens are pretty good here. All right, he's just going to go for the Demonic Tutor with 1 token. I'm guessing this is Ingot Chewer. Since Chalice does not stop the 1-mana evoke.
Right, it's, you know, a 1-mana spell that you can sort of cheat through the Chalice.
What a crazy game. Gush!
For Gush. Wow, I like it. It's a greedy play, but it seems absolutely correct.
Into the Ingot Chewer.
Yeah.
That's way better.
Why not get some tokens, some extra cards for your trouble? I mean...
Oh, he even gets to play the second Young Pyro. Oh, he does that instead of the Ingot Chewer. Interesting.
Yeah. We wanted to go straight to the destination, but Ola took the scenic route. He, stroll through the woods, pick some flowers on the way. Now he's got everything he needs.
Wow. So does that mean he's going to Ingot Chewer the Chalice and cast Ancestral?
Yeah, the 3/3 creature that doesn't have the threat of becoming larger, doesn't have the threat of getting equipped. It's just really ineffectual in the face of these 2 Young Pyromancers. I think you'll see him kill the Chalice because he'll Ancestral, he'll draw some more spells. Being able to cast the Ancestral just represents such a large stream of tokens that I think he's just going to overwhelm the Ravager.
He's thinking about it. Target. Oh, he goes Ravager. It does clear a path for an attack.
It's quicker too. Just attack for 6 a few times. We're done here.
It's 6 then 8 right now. It's almost lethal. Almost lethal next turn, but not quite. Oh, it is lethal if he feeds Ancestral to Chalice. Now he's got Treasure Cruise. Doesn't even need to feed an Ancestral into the Chalice to make tokens. Ula building up a board which will be lethal next turn. Cool game.
Yeah, very cool game. I thought those early turns were really interesting. The mana management on both sides. The decisions of what to tutor for, what to do with the scries. Even from David's perspective, which he certainly had a lot fewer choices than Ula in this game, but they were important too. I mean, when to Wasteland... what spells to play on the small number of turns that he actually did get to play spells. Like if you'll remember, he chose to play the Thorn of Amethyst before his Ravager. Right. But all things considered, he just never got the mana he needed.
And we are on to game 3. Wow. I mean, look, I don't know if it was correct for Ula to go for the, mana screw you under your own Thorn plan, but it did work.
It did work, yeah.
I mean, he's at least got the scoreboard defense going for him.
So we've got a classic matchup on the classic trajectory so far. Workshop deck wins game 1. The blue deck wins game 2. Now we're going to see Workshop on the play. This is the closest game we're going to have, because the blue deck has its sideboard tools, but the workshop deck still has its explosiveness and it's got the play. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like he's bringing back in the Tangle Wires. I guess he just decided that maybe they're not the best in this matchup. If the Pyromancer gets going, it's just too many permanents. The deck operates on a small number of lands. I could see it.
Yeah, you can just wait them out when you're playing a Pyromancer deck.
I'm excited about these Worm Coil engines. I mean, just a giant haymaker in the face of Null Rod.
That's true.
And good against Ingot Chewer if it gets to that point.
All right. A little bit of lag on Ochoa's hand cam, but we're into the game. Whew, so it's turn 1 workshop for not much. A Crucible that he can follow up with a Wasteland, though, so that's probably enough. He's got Crucible Wasteland lock.
Crucible Wasteland, yeah. And
Ula does have a Mox, though.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Revoker's going to shut the Mox down.
Ula's hand is awesome.
Oh, yeah, that's certainly true. You're right. He's even got all his colors. He'll Force of Will the Crucible, presumably, and then he'll be fine?
I think so, yeah. I think, you keep this hand kind of expecting to force whatever the workshop player comes up with on turn 1.
Right, and it's going to be Crucible, and you're going to wonder, is this bait? Is that really all he's got? Like, Crucible is not the most threatening turn 1 card out of a workshop deck.
No, but it's a card whose impact on the game is not necessarily obvious right away. I think it would be an error if he was to let it resolve, because it has the potential to be so powerful if the game goes long.
Yeah. He also has lightning bolts for any creatures that Ochoa comes up with, so.
Yeah.
It's not like you need to Force a Will a golem or anything, a lodestone golem.
So both players do keep. This is going to be an interesting game.
Agreed.
What would you use to Force a Will with?
I would pitch the Dig.
I think so. I think you want to just get some momentum.
He leads Revoker.
Huh. It'd be great if he guesses right. Just Mox Ruby.
If he guesses Mox Ruby, oh my god.
Yeah.
There's no way you guess Mox Ruby. You usually name like Dak Faden.
Dak Faden,
Dak Faden is the card that the workshop deck lives in the most fear of, for sure. Yeah, there's no way you can guess. You don't guess a random Mox. Dak Faden's the right call.
Naming Mox Ruby, that's like a Gerard Fabiano move. This I'm living in fear of his meddling mages, because Gerard has a knack for just, he's got like a sixth sense and intuition for the way games can go, and
Mox Sapphire.
He's also not afraid to guess.
Interesting. I don't think you want Null Rod in this Mox Ruby as your only red source game.
No,
Mox
probably
Sapphire?
not. Especially given that David, already had his turn 1 and didn't put a bunch of artifact mana into play.
Right.
Yeah, I think the Null Rod's going to the bottom. Mox Sapphire seems good. It's wasteland proof.
That's true.
Are you surprised at all that he went for Preordain before Brainstorm?
With no reshuffle effect, I think Preordain first is correct.
Because you're looking for a reshuffle effect?
You just get to dig deeper. Yeah. You want to find. I think he actively wants one more land, so digging to find a fetch land, he just gets more cards. I mean, you're right that he could Preordain his way through the stuff he doesn't want that he put back with Brainstorm, but I think this line's better.
It's also possible a few turns from now he could do the trick where he brainstorms and then dig through time to clear the top of his library. Although I'm sure he's expecting that at some point he'll have to use this Force of Will and won't get to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Don't you? He's gonna take the 2? Yeah, just bolt it. You're gonna wind up bolting that thing at some point. You've got a second lightning bolt. Just don't take any damage. Now, Wasteland Crucible, right? Just the question is the order?
Yeah, I think
I
he
think
should
he
just
just
cast the Crucible,
agreed.
put him to the test. Give him as
Yeah,
little
don't
as
show Ula
possible.
what your land drop is going to be. I mean, because from Ula's perspective, that it could be a workshop and something scarier coming. Interesting. Ochoa's going to slow roll the Crucible. Maybe try to bait out a Force of Will with that Worm Coil engine first. Yeah, he's just not going to spend his mana this turn.
Wormcoil Engine as bait is that's funny situation. So I like Ula's play here. He saw his draw step and then cast Brainstorm in his own main phase to see a little bit deeper. Doesn't want to Brainstorm lock himself if he can't find a shuffle effect.
Yep. And the last card he found was that Polluted Delta.
So he's in great shape here. He's got answers for the next one or two of David's threats, and he's got a lot of ways to see more cards in his library. Now,
Yeah, I
I
wouldn't call
guess
it great.
David.
If he had a Pyromancer, he'd be in great shape. I don't know. The
Yeah,
hand still feels slightly flawed to me in that he's supposed to be the more aggressive. Like his opponent's trying to build up a lock, he wants to be aggressively winning the game, not just surviving.
This is true. But he gets to develop his mana. He gets to put more cards in his hand. So it seems that David maybe he predicted the Ingot Chewer and wanted to get at least a little bit of guaranteed value from the Crucible before it inevitably dies. Maybe that's why he didn't cast it last turn.
Okay, I'll buy that. Now he gets to go Crucible with a land drop available for the Wasteland.
Aha, Sword of Fire.
Ula does now know exactly what's up thanks to that Gitaxian Probe, though.
Mm-hmm. Gitaxian Probe is such a powerful card. I mean, a lot of the power of it is hidden in the intangible ability to see your opponent's hand. On its surface, it's just 1 mana or 0 mana to cycle, but the reality is so much more important than that, so much bigger than that.
So Ula let the Crucible resolve. I mean, obviously he's got an Ingot Chewer to blow it up with, but he does give Ochoa a Wasteland this way.
Yeah, but that's okay. He has the luxury that he can fetch for a basic land if he wants to here.
Can.
And it's possible that he was able to deduce based on David's lack of explosiveness that his hand has a lot of lands in it.
He did see it last turn.
Yeah. Oh, right.
So
I was just saying the Gitaxian Probe, but given that is the texture of David's hand.
He wants to force the Will of Worm Coil, which obviously you can't answer with Ingot Chewer effectively.
Yeah, and the limiting factor is not so much the number of lands that David has access to, but it's just that he can only play one per turn, right? So letting him play one from his graveyard instead of playing one from his hand, not that big a difference.
Hello, young Pyromancer.
Yeah, there he is.
Now I think Ula's in good shape. Force the Will for the Worm Coil. Well, now he's in just great shape. Force the Will for the Worm Coil. There's nothing to put Sword of Fire and Ice onto. Top deck, top deck. This match has been great.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. The second game was I really didn't know who was going to win in the early turns. We haven't had a ton of back and forth, but I think the decisions have been just incredibly interesting in this match.
And now Ochoa knows that Ula knows about 4 of his cards, but Ochoa knows that Ula doesn't know about the Ravager or the Sword. Does that mean...
is he going to try to set up a surprise turn with the Sword?
I think you just go for Worm Coil here. I mean, he knows that Ula knows about it, but...
I agree. Yeah, I mean...
You have 6 mana.
Just get the Worm Coil out as quickly as possible.
Or try to. It's going to wind up feeding it. Oh, hey. He decides to go with Ravager. He is in a position where he can play both the Ravager and the Sword this turn, which is nice. Now, what does Ula do? He can say, okay, Ingot Chewer the Ravager, Force the Will the Worm Coil Engine, and then he just figures, that sword doesn't do anything. My opponent has no creatures. It's like last game where he said, well, I can deal with the lands that Ochoa has now, and he just won't draw anymore. This game, he can do the same trick, but with creatures. Huh. And now a Wasteland for the workshop, but there's Crucible.
Yep.
Such exploding
He only gets to destroy one of these artifacts, and it's a heavy decision which one it's going to be.
Well, let's get some more information first.
Sure, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe find another answer card. I think he really has to tread carefully around the sword here. With the Pyromancer in play, that is the way that he can let this game slip through his fingers, is if he gets hit by a sword.
Totally agree. Demonic Tutor, Force of Will, Ingot Chewer, Jace, Lightning Bolt, Strip Mine Wasteland.
Well, he has got his pick. Seems like he's going to take some combination of, probably like one answer card and one more card drawing spell, like maybe the Demonic Tutor. Although he does not have access to black mana, so maybe that option is off the table.
He also only has one red mana.
Yep.
At a time. There's no island there that he could use for the other half of Gush.
Was there a Jace in the?
Yeah, there was a Jace.
7? Okay, so that's a powerful
Jace
option. Although he
Ingot
just
Chewer?
delved away his whole graveyard, so it's going to be a turn or two away from flipping.
Yeah, Ingot Chewer seems obvious to me. The other card is less clear. I guess that Gush is the blue card for Force of Will. Yeah, if he had black mana, I would like your DT plan, but he just takes the second answer. Takes the Lightning Bolt.
Now
Now
that I factor in the mana restrictions that he was facing, that actually wasn't that backbreaking a dig through time. He got 2 answer cards, but he can still only cast 1 per turn. He doesn't quite have a never-ending stream of card drawers to link together to make this young Pyromancer, as good as we saw it be last game.
do you Wasteland Workshop to make him Crucible it back? Or do you want the colorless mana?
Well, I guess that answered the question for us. He did decide to go for it. I think I like that. fairly unlikely to make a big difference. I mean, it's a tempo kind of play, but I guess he doesn't need the colorless mana very much.
Right. He also knows Ochoa is sitting on a 6-drop in Wormcoil Engine from that Git probe a couple of turns ago. Wow, he used the Lightning Bolt on the Ravager. Okay, yeah, he can Ingot Chewer this. I don't think you Force a Will this, right? Because Wormcoil is the one you want to Force a Will.
Well,
but it's gonna wear a sword. That was.
He's gonna have to Ingot Chewer the sword.
Yeah, by drawing a 4-mana creature, he can equip it with sword. Now Ula's going to be forced to Ingot Chewer the sword.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, he's all red mana. There we go. Now
and not only red mana, but an island for the Gush as well.
Alright. Evoke 1 Ingot Chewer. Presumably, blow up your sword. Yep. And now the other one can blow up the Lodestone. And everything is coming up Rade.
Mm-hmm. Now, the question is, will he just Force of Will the Wormcoil and be cleaned out?
I would not Gush here. If you Gush and you whiff on a blue card, it's just too risky. That Wormcoil is insane. Just pitch the Gush. You're up. You have 5 things on 5 power.
Yeah, you put it in a spot where David's got 1 turn, pretty much. But The thing is, if that one turn finds the right card, if it finds another Wormcoil or a
I know.
Triskelion.
You asked me my opinion.
No,
I
yeah,
can
I mean,
imagine there are players who would gush here. It's
I'm
so
agonizing.
greedy. Like
I
half
can't
his
wait to
deck
see
is
what he
blue
does.
cards, right? Oh
Ooh,
wow. Please gush, says David Ochoa. I
yeah,
like it, Ola. I like Ola's line.
discipline, discipline.
Didn't even gush in the face of Wasteland because he knows about the Wormcoil engine. I mean, that's the thing. If he didn't know about the Wormcoil engine from that Git probe 5 turns ago or whatever, then I think you would gush there as response to Wasteland. But
Yeah, and he knows he's got a dominant board presence, and he's turned off the ancient tombs at this point as reliable mana sources.
yep.
Wow, David Drew.
No, it's lag on his hand cam. That's the same Wormcoil from before.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
It would be an interesting game if he did draw a Wormcoil.
Yes, yes, it would. Pretty sure that's the one from before. We just haven't seen what he drew this turn. He drew Arcbound Ravager. I keep
Hangerback,
calling him Arcbound Ravager. He drew Hangerback Walker. It's the second time tonight I did that.
which
Sorry.
is not good enough, right? He can't get it to
Can't kill
die
it. Yeah.
to get enough blockers.
Yeah, he only gets to block one thing, so looks like Ula Rade is going to take this win.
Yeah, a cool match
What a
too.
match.
I loved it.
That was just a great game of Magic to watch. That was fun, Reed. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, yeah. So I get to walk the plank next, right?
Yeah, your match is up second, right? You and
All right.
Gerard. So you said earlier you thought you had kind of a good matchup against Gerard, but you still sounded like you were a little bit worried.
Listen, I've known Gerard for a long time, and he is a master. He has a way of finding wins in the most unlikely situations, and he has put together this kind of wacky looking deck because these are the cards that he likes and that he knows how to win with. So on paper, the matchup on paper is one thing, but with Gerard, I don't look at the matchup on paper. I'm just gonna be ready for anything, and I'm gonna expect a war.
All right. Well, good luck to you. Hopefully, get some
Thank
more
you, Rick.
matches. Stay tuned, guys. When we come back, it will be Reed Duke against Gerard Fabiano. Stay tuned.